Well, Happy New Year to gardeners out there. Ed and Delia here with our 2025 welcome video or recap video, kind of a combination of a little bit of everything. Last year we kind of went through the seeds we ordered and things like that, and I think we'll change it up this year. You know what kind of seeds you're going to get and stuff along that line. I do want to talk about, though, what's new for this year, and I'll go so far as to say that in 2025 we started thinking about it in 2024. There was probably in October, November last year, we kind of looked at it from a tax situation, and when things started slowing down, I think Delia and I, on a couple of our trips to the farmers market in Topeka, things were slowing down. We could kind of exhale, like waiting to exhale. Had such a busy year, and I think 2024, at the end of it, we kind of got a chance to reasonably talk about, what's working, what wasn't working, and that type of thing. Wouldn't you agree that was probably a good time for us at that time to...
well, towards the end, yeah. I mean, you can finally see what did work, what didn't work, and most things did work. But
most things did work, but we have our failures, or we have our lack of success type opportunities, whatever you want to call them. There's some of them that were a flat out failure, things that were kind of upsetting to us to some degree. Both of us,
at the beginning of the season.
Well, and they talk about where. And right now we're in the midst of, we're living near Kansas City and living near Topeka, Kansas. And, I'm watching playoff football right now with the Chiefs. And anyway, an individual, some of the commentary is you shouldn't really say anything to the media if you're a player until you get a chance to cool down a little bit. You got to better cool down. Well, certainly... making abrupt decisions in July probably ain't your best bet if you're already working 14 hours a day and things like that. You probably need to get a tight chance when you get a chance to exhale, get a chance to think about it. Don't make decisions too quick and all that. So, but anyway, Happy New Year to everybody. We're very happy to have you along. Let's talk about first. I think number one, before we could do anything in 2025, you got to be able to address what your problems were in 2024. Even though Delia and I didn't have technically a formal meeting about it or anything, but we have conversations about different things. And one of the things, and I think my most frustrating early on, and we thought we addressed it last year, when we bought a plastic mulch layer, and that was to help us with the weed control, right? I mean, that was
right. And I think the areas that we did use it did address the problem.
In the 30 inches area.
In the 30 inches, that was it.
In the 30 inches. Now you got another 4 foot or 7 feet or whatever.
30 inches.
And what was really frustrating, and we're a conventional farmer. We are not organic. I'll try to do things organically in spirit as much as we can, but we're a conventional farm. But I really thought I'd have it figured out, but we didn't. And in between the rows of plastic, I can't tell you the number of times that we've gone in and pulled, and our weeds, our primary weeds that we're dealing with out in the field is cockleburr. It's dealing with water hemp, palm amaranth, and then chickweed. That would be probably our big ones there. And then there's, of course, 500 other small weeds here and there and stuff. But as far as the ones, you get an area of, every now and then you'll hit a pocket of a western ragweed, and that can be troublesome. I got to deal with some of that. You have some lamb's quarter and things like that. And if you don't know your weeds, I can tell you this, do whatever you can. Take a class on it. Study up on it. When I was in college, one of the things my instructor would do back in college, we'd go for a walk along the cornfields, along the edge of the college there, and we had crops out there, and he would reach down the ground and he'd pull it up and he'd hold the weed into the air and say, "What is this?" And whether you'd identify whether it's brome grass or Indian grass or fescue, that's part of it. And then of course for those he would take corrective action. That's important. You got to be a crop scout. So anyway, weed control was a big one. So not only did I use some herbicide between the rows to address this problem, thinking I had it nailed. But I tell you what, herbicide, I did it right. But within 30 days, the weeds appeared. And at that time, now I got plants growing. I got everything kind of coming up. I'm in trouble now. So we started hoeing, didn't we? We did some hoeing. We did tilling. We did weed pulling, hands and knees. And I got a phrase that I use, I'm a livestock person. But, and it's not meant to be vulgar. But I felt like I was having to castrate the same steer over and over and over again all through the year. That's the honest truth. When you do a job, you want the job to be done, right? So you can move on. Especially it's important for Delia and I. I mean, gosh, we're not getting any younger, and neither are you. And when you do a job, you think to yourself, well, I can't we did not have the time to go back and redo this. And that's where the weeds really get in control. And I think for folks, you need to understand our situation a little bit, that 5 hours out of every day of our time is going to be dedicated not only to harvesting, but selling. You're going to have a minimum of 5 hours. When the sweet corn's ready, when the strawberries this year are going to be ready, when you have these surpluses, when we have a lot of pumpkins we got to deal with, cantaloupe, watermelon, we got to not only harvest, but we're going to have to get out and sell them, which means I'm not there and neither is Delia, to take care of any weeding. So you can get an hour's worth of weeding in or something like that, but you're also thinking about flipping beds. You're thinking about, the next crop, starting seedlings. We have all kinds of things. So needless to say, that's a problem. And we got to think about what we're going to do about it. The next thing that really got us, and I'm going to say, we say insects, aphids in general, wouldn't you say was our number one from the insect perspective?
Right. Yes.
We did pretty good when it came down to cucumber beetle on some management there. I did use some, I went out in the evenings after the bees have already gone up, and after the bees are already gone, I did do a little insect spraying out there with the organic Perithian on things that help control some of the insects in our squash and cucumbers and things like that. But aphids became our number one. As a matter of fact, Delia and I hadn't dealt with aphids really, have we? I mean, it really hadn't been an issue. And but all of a sudden we get out there, we plant our okra.
Well, I think it all started in the small tunnel where I was seeding all the plants.
And we had, yes.
And then we transferred them to the field. When they were ready to plant.
But we just didn't see it. We hadn't had this problem. So aphids was an issue to us this year. And
it delayed everything, because literally the first planting of okra, yellow squash, zucchini, peppers, they were all destroyed. Literally, everything was destroyed by the bugs.
And what was worse is we ended up having, and you got to have these kind of talks to kind of, as you get going, to kind of remind yourself a little bit about what happened. What also kind of clouded our thinking at the time was we were having daily 25-mile-an-hour winds back in the day. So we're actually thinking that the wind's beating the crap out of our plants, and that's probably why we're losing. And we're going to talk about the wind in a minute, but aphids was our number one. And I'm going to tell you what, them plants that get an aphid on them, they're going backwards fast. They cannot they're busy. You know, it's just like, you know, you're in a catabolic state is what the plants were in, was a catabolic state. And that's a problem. So that's one of our problems. Then the next thing, I got deer on here, but really when you look at the springtime was wind. Mm-hmm. So we originally started planting. Delia had a most beautiful, it was her very best 3 rows in between the greenhouses that we've ever had. It was beautiful. And she had so much pride, and I had pride for her. It looked nice. You go out there to the high tunnels. I call them greenhouses, but the high tunnels. You go out there to the high tunnels, you look there, and boy, your old chest buttons are popping off because, gosh, them cucumbers looking, or the cabbage is looking good, and you had broccoli in there, and everything's looking good. And then what happened, Delia?
We got one of the many windstorms, and literally the next day I went out there, and at least a third of all the cabbage was just either totally ripped out, roots and all, or snapped. But they were dead and gone.
You can't, I mean, it's either that or cry, folks. You got to laugh at it. It was terrible. Absolutely terrible. And this is after March 1st. I mean, that type of thing. And so now we got that.
To the point that I didn't know what to do to save those poor little things, that I did buy snow fence, and I put it on both ends to see if that would help. And that did help somewhat.
To help because they would come, you know, it's springtime, so you're going to get winds out of the north, going to get winds out of the south, and you'll have that type of thing. So that's our problem right now. So we've talked, that's our problems. That's our, and I will add one more problem, which is a good problem. The good problem, I'll say, with potatoes that we did have is we ran out early every day. When we did have potatoes, we were done by 9 o'clock, 9:30 most days. So that is a problem when you're selling till noon, 1 o'clock. And on top of it, other days, we'd be so backed up. It's so hot. Mm-hmm. Either I don't feel like digging because it's so hot and I'm already wore down, or I'm running late I need to sell that corn. So kind of potatoes kind of got put on the back. Doesn't matter what excuse I want to give. We were always either short or out of potatoes. So that's a good bad thing. But that's part of our problems. We need to also address some of those. I think if you could say that about any crop out there, that if you're out there selling, I'll give radish as an example. And I think, and this goes back to our weed control. Another good bad thing is our radishes were always sold out early. Mm-hmm. So that's something there that we need to improve on. And we haven't even got radish in my list here, but it's one of those kind of subtle things that you got in the back of your mind and I think if we can address some of these other issues, then radishes can be moved up toward the front, that type of thing. So let's go ahead and look at some of our positives. So the next thing I want to talk about is our positives, things that we've recognized, and I'll say, without a doubt, it was our finest crop we ever had. It was our very best crop for all the things that kind of brings you down. You gotta also have your eyes wide open when you do things right. Without a doubt, my very best sweet corn. We finally grew cantaloupe and watermelon. We beat the crows.
Yes.
And until the weeds overtook us, there was a period where all of our cantaloupe and watermelon vines was totally covering the ground, and it looked beautiful. It looked like it came out of a magazine. Very positive. My potatoes. My gosh, I was able to stay up on that Colorado potato beetle. I was able to do some corrective action. There was periods of time where the Japanese beetle and the Colorado potato beetle started coming in. It's that moment when all of a sudden you say, oh my gosh, here they come. I see stuff happening, and I got in and I made corrective action, and without a doubt, the best potatoes we ever grew. Although there's some green potatoes that
you got another piece
that
of
we got some. That's a problem, but we still grew more potatoes we ever grew. And then the last thing was the onions, and that best onion crop. No, now Delia and I have grown some wonderful onions, but I'm gonna go so far as to say, folks, growing them onions under the black plastic. Delia, what do you?
You did get much larger onions.
I mean,
my only problem with that was we did get a lot of spring rains, and so we did have the bottom rows flooded. And with the plastic on, the ground would not dry off.
That was an environmental issue due to location on our farm, more than it had to do with our I mean, I think if I wanted to have the plastic on there, to be honest, it would have washed them out. So let's look at it from that perspective. So that's kind of a bad spot. That type of thing. So let's move on. I think I got it. Let me look real quick, folks. So let's look at some of our, that's what I want to do. Corrective actions, improvement, and investments. Now we're here in January 20th, or around the 20th, 21st of January. But let's get into this, and this is something that we made the commitment to last year when we were planting our strawberries, or doing some work with our strawberries. Delia and I basically looked at each other in the eye, and we said we're going to do one thing between we're going to have our plastic mulch. We have our plastic mulch. These are 30-inch, it'll be a 30-inch bed for the plastic mulch, 4-foot plastic, but 30 inches above ground. And then in between the rows, what are we going to do this year?
We did already.
We started.
We put the woven fabric down.
Woven fabric.
So that we don't get the weeds between the rows.
As soon as we, Brett,
our neighbor,
Bunger, our neighbor, he's doing some work for us, and goodness gracious, it's wonderful having him helping us on the farm. But me and him got in there, and he's done so much work, but really busted the weeds down and everything else. But the thing is, once we put the woven fabric down, that was it. The weeds were no longer there. They weren't reappearing, and we're going to be proactive on that. We're going to go ahead also, anywhere that we're laying the black plastic rows, because these are longer crops, right, folks? I mean, this is not a green bean, it's not sweet corn. But where you're going to have onions, you're going to have, we did it in our garlic this year, but all crops that are pretty much a long season crop, 80 days and things like that, with wider rows is going to, the broccoli, the cabbage, the cauliflower, the dill.
Even the cantaloupe and watermelon.
Cantaloupe, watermelon. So those are like 6-foot rows, 7-foot between those rows. So we're going to get the 6-foot plastic for in between those rows. So we're going to put woven fabric. As soon as we get done laying our plastic down, we're also going to add woven fabric between the rows. I feel pretty confident. I think Delia does. Whether you are paying for someone to pull your weeds from you, whether you're organic and you're pulling weeds, or you have a person run through them with a hoe or some other device, or mechanical. Maybe you have one of them real fancy little, the tractor with the machine that actually stirs up the ground every day. All that's wonderful. But whatever you got to do, you got to put some form of investment in. And for Delia and I want to stop castrating that cow or calf every day or every week. And we're going to go in there. We're going to lay our plastic mulch down. We're going to go ahead and put in our woven fabric between the rows, and rainwater does go through that. So we are not losing out on that opportunity. I think we get ourselves around year 3 or so. I think those kind of things can ease up a little bit. It'll help us in the long run. So let's talk about, so another problem, forget about in between the rows, but let's just even look at my green beans, and let's look at sweet corn, and even cantaloupe, even watermelon. pumpkins. These are all crops from a sweet corn and green bean perspective, even cantaloupe. We're not planting it all at one time. So we have our, I put my fertilizer down, I till the ground up. The place looks like we're
We know what we're doing.
we know what we're doing. Yes, very good. So we look like we know what we're doing, but the fact is all of a sudden before you're ready to plant, you got to deal with weeds again. So something else we bought, and we only bought one, but we're going to have to get a little bit more of these. But we're going to go ahead and start adding silage tarps to our rotation. They're heavy. Going to take some more sandbags, or if you got friends with tires, or whatever you got to lay these things out, and you need to go ahead and make sure they don't blow away on you. But we're going to start taking advantage of silage tarps on the property for ground that's currently fallow, ground that's just sitting there. I do want to go ahead when I put the fertilizer down, because I'm going to put down dry fertilizer down in the spring at one time, and then I'm going to till the field in at one time. But after that, we're in good shape. After that, I don't need to till the field up again or anything. But as I get around to, okay, I'm going to plant more green beans this week. So what I need to better do is move that silage tarp away from that area, or fold it back or whatever, so I can go in and plant my next passing of green beans or sweet corn or cantaloupe or whatever. Let's start proactively by keeping the weeds down to begin with. The only work I want to do this year on weed management, and I'm talking about in general terms, folks, you can't be in this business without pulling a weed. That's just a fact. But the point is that all I really want to do is the work it takes to put down a silage tarp, and the work it's going to take for me to move the silage tarp, because what I do know is that wherever that silage tarp is, no weed's going to go through that barrier. It's not even, it's a matter of fact, it's going to heat up the soil.
I was going to say, especially in the summertime, it's going to cook the weeds that are
about 2 inches deep. It'll start cooking some of that weed seed in that zone, and it'll help neutralize and prevent some of these weeds from coming. In the long run, again, we're talking about reduced chemical uses. It's healthier for everybody. All the above. That's that. So let's get into the next positive thing. Green bean planting. I found out last year I can really grow some green beans, can't I?
You can grow them a little too much.
I can grow them too much. I tell you what, folks, I had forgotten, evidently in the spring, how long it takes Ed Schneider to go down a 100-foot row. But, so, we are reducing. I'm no longer planting as many. I was planting like 12 rows at one time. Well, this year I'm going to plant 4 rows per about 10 days. I'm not looking for green beans I'm not looking for that second regenerative batch. I want the cream, and I'm going to replant beans every 10 days. What I found with the varieties that we're planting, that you can go through it. You can go through it like the week before and get a few early ones on the very bottom and down your rows. But Delia will be able to harvest 2 rows. I'll harvest 2 rows, and that's our week. That's what we're going to harvest, and we'll get plenty of beans, I think, that we can manage and do that. So there's that one. Talking about that. Yeah, I just grew too much at one time. It was just stupid on my part.
It looked pretty.
It sure did. Boy, it looked like a soybean field is what it looked like. So next thing is the fact of where we live, 7 miles from Auburn or Burlingame, Kansas. We are at least 40 minutes probably from Topeka. I'm not getting people out here as of yet. And they're not coming out to pick our pumpkins. That's just a fact. We've
done it for 3 years, and we'll get
5 years,
yeah.
I think. We've done it for 5 years, and we can't get people out to pick a pumpkin.
We'll get a family here, a family there, but that's about it.
Yeah. So, all of our pumpkins are having to be transported in. The next thing is...
transport it out.
Yeah, we got to transport it out. But let's even look at it from the reality of the consumer. Starting in September, at the grocery stores, at the gas stations, at the farm supply stores, at the home improvement stores, there's pumpkins coming out right after Labor Day. They're already out there for everybody to start buying. On top of it, I'm not a fan. We're not family friendly in the terms of distance for a family to want to be there. I wish we were on a main travel route where we're between two major points and we're going to get people to naturally flow into our place. That's not us. We do not have, we have a lot of people within a reasonable drive to Delia and I, but they're not coming to us. So we're going to go and redo, we're still going to grow pumpkins, the gourds, things like that, but we are going to reduce a few rows of them, and we are adding cantaloupe because cantaloupe did sell for us. That was our number one thing. When it came down to cantaloupe, I couldn't believe the number of times if I put cantaloupe out in front of my booth in August or the end of July, how that could stop cars running down the highway for our area. Cantaloupe will stop a car when I'm out there in the country. I mean, when I'm out along the side of the road truck farming, that'll stop a car. And they may not even buy your sweet corn or tomatoes that you got there at the time, but they want to buy that cantaloupe. And if they're buying a cantaloupe, they might buy a watermelon to boot. So let's go ahead, in our case, just realize some of our market weaknesses and let's build it into a strength. That's one thing that we are focused on that. We've added strawberries.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big one. We kind of struggled at our bare root strawberries. Again, I'm going to call that a weed issue in there. Weeds. And the time we were planting, we were knee deep in with the sweet corn, and they weren't managed right. But Delia did get in there, and she did. We were able to replant. Oh, every row got replanted, I guess you could say. We're going to see how well some of those rows did, but one way or the other this year, we are going to have strawberries for sale. We got some very good rows of strawberries. Not every row is going to be $1 million row, but there are going to be some good strawberries in there. So what that does is that, and we've added some blackberries, but deer are eating the darn blackberries. I don't expect much out of them this year. We're going to have to deal with some fencing for the deer on the blackberries. But let me go so far as to say that when you look at your month-by-month sales, the earlier in the season you can start making money. In other words, what do you have to sell in April? What do you have to sell in May? We're a long-term crop for, I'm going to be right honest with folks about the fact that I see folks that are in different parts of the country, East Coast in particular, and maybe West Coast, but they come out there and they have 20 coolers full of lettuce. I don't know if we could sell more than a one cooler of lettuce as a rule. Maybe on a good spring day we could, but the point is that we got to look at alternative crops. It's just not in our. For right now. It's not something there that I'm gonna focus enough to specialize. What I do like about lettuce is it is a high yield or high value crop. I mean, if you're looking at dollars per ounce of product sold, lettuce is a wonderful crop. But we're not. I've seen Delia show up with 20 bags of lettuce, and there's some weeks you do great on it, and they're gone. And the other weeks when you agree that some weeks you're there till dang near the end with still got some lettuce in your hand.
And it depends which market you're going to.
Depends which market you're going to. And that's the other thing about the lettuce. also is we got one strong lettuce market that we sell at right now. And the other ones through the week aren't there.
Right.
That's our issue. So we got to deal with that.
Did you die?
Oh, I don't know what that was about, but it's still on. Okay, so the next thing is our investment into ourselves is there was a period in July, and I'm making fun of both me and Delia here. There was a period in July at around 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Delia gave me a call, and this was a Friday night, and she says, wherever I'm at with the sweet corn picking, I need to stop because we got whatever sweet corn I got ought to be enough. And it was late at night. We still had to load up the trailers. Mm-hmm. A trailer had to load up the truck. I'm out there with the headlamp on myself, and I'm picking the sweet corn. And I tell you what, in July there, the second week of July, this was not the time I was going to get this next item. But when we got later on in the year, we realized where we were standing in a much better shape on the money, and we had a pretty good month of July. So now we're into August, September, and I brought it up. And we did decide to go ahead and buy this potato harvester. I've shown this in an earlier video, and we could actually, like I said, the worst thing you want to do, if I would ask for a potato harvester and expand the operation, I probably would have got something else besides some polite words and the sign of the cross or anything like that from Delia. That it just wouldn't have happened. That being said, potatoes are an opportunity for us. We do have a market where people want green beans, they want their onions, they want their potatoes, they want their sweet corn, they want their cantaloupe. Those are and they want some radishes and cucumbers, but without a doubt, that's one area that we can improve upon. So we bought the potato harvester, and to justify the potato harvester, we also bought a hiller in there because some of our potatoes were turning green, right?
Yeah.
We were not getting our potatoes covered well enough, so we bought a hiller so we could actually, one of those disc hillers, and so I can run the tractor down and throw some more dirt over the top of these plants. We got to take care of them. So I just told you earlier that we have the best potatoes we ever grew. Well, can you imagine if I didn't have to throw away so many 30% of our potatoes due to we threw away 30% in many locations because I had potatoes popping out of the ground like mushrooms, so they turned green on me. So imagine what we're going to do. I mean, we should do better. Yeah, knock on my head, knock on my head. So we did that. So then we turned right around, and we've already. And if you haven't done so, you might consider contacting your seed supplier. We go through an Amish store that in near Chillicothe, Missouri, called Mast. Actually, Jamesport, Missouri, Mast Produce. And they're wonderful folks, but we called up Mast, and they're in the phone book. But go and get your potatoes ordered. We went ahead and got them ordered, and we're adding 100 pounds to what we're already growing.
Well, basically
right now.
Doubling.
So we're doubling, and so we're doing that. The other thing that we did this year, we got a little bit earlier on it, and this is important. Through Rupp Seeds, they offer a savings. If you order, well, Delia, you talk about the savings.
In August. In August, you get 10% off, and you have to pay some of it up front. So
your seeds.
And then every month after that, it reduces by 1%. So we actually ordered ours in September, so we got 9% off our cost.
So by ordering our seeds through Rupp Seeds in September, now they didn't have a final price for us, but because we're already a customer of theirs, they went ahead and we sent them a check. Mm-hmm. We'll say $1,000. We sent them our $1,000 to them, and then if there's any difference, then you'll get a bill. Or a credit in this case, and we have a credit But the reason we got a credit
Because they still owe us too.
is because they owe us because we saved 9% also.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it's a combination of both. We actually ordered more
Than last year.
than last year, but we got a savings. So think about that early on. I know we're in February and you say, gosh, Ed, thanks a lot for telling us in February when the savings are all gone. But there's also the Amish guys, the rolling hills and mast. If you look at their catalogs, if you're going to buy some of their heavy, any of their orders in December.
Right. If you pay for your order in December and you're not going to pick it up till later, you get an 8% off, I believe.
So you get 8% off. So imagine a $10,000 high tunnel and all set.
And we did our second high tunnel.
Yeah.
We get 8% off.
So you get 8% off. I mean, gosh darn. I mean, you're saving $1,000 or $800 off of a high tunnel, and the difference is you plan for it. So think about that. It's definitely. You definitely need to know that. Let me put it that way. You need to know that. So saving that. So let's talk about, and I'm near the end, folks. I'm really near the end, and I'm having fun sharing this with you. But the next thing is the wind. Remember, we were all the cabbage, broccoli, and et cetera, and not to mention aphids. Wind was an enemy in the spring. And I have another thing that happened in the fall. We actually had a fall crop planted. Delia, tell them about what happened in the fall when you put it out in the field.
Well, they looked beautiful for a couple of weeks until some deer came jumping over the fence and saw it, and I guess invited all his friends, because within overnight, I would say 2/3 of all the rows were gone.
And you planted, that was, what was it?
What did I plant? I planted cabbage, broccoli, Brussels sprouts. I think that was it.
So she had a nice batch there. So even when we did some things right, we were behind. I mean, we lost. They were gone. I mean, there'll be some cabbage it'll still create a hit or two this spring, but after all the frost. So what we're doing is row covers, folks. We're going to go ahead and purchase some light duty row covers that will offer. From what I gather, it's like 80% sunlight penetration.
Right.
About 80% sunlight penetration. It does offer insect protection to the plants. If you're talking squash and zucchini, you're going to need to open that up because the bees do need to get in there. But for your flowering type of things, you'd want to have your peppers opened up or whatever. But the wind and the deer and the sun protection, I think and there is value to shading your crops quite a bit. So that's something that we've also going to address this next year. So we're looking at maybe adding 6 rows of that. Last but not least, and it's something there that Brett and myself and Delia's been working on. I got 2 things. The first thing was we're adding. What are these 2 things we're adding out there?
2 calves.
2 calves. So we have part of our place here, at least 2 acres of our ground is what I would call either suitable for pasturing an animal or growing an orchard. It's one or the other. And right now, until Delia and I can take care of the back, the last thing I want to do is be responsible for a tree anywhere and that type of thing. So we're going to get an orchard or calves out here. Number one, I love eating beef. Delia likes eating beef, and it's so. And the thing that I'm excited about is once we harvest all these green beans, and then you're going to have the beans still there producing another crop. That I'm really going to be focusing more on the next batch of planting. And that, well, I go ahead and pull them beans, cut them beans out, and we can also feed it to our calves. Things like that. Same thing with sweet corn, where you have that second ear that's kind of small. You can go and chop a little bit of corn and start doing that. Gotta be careful with some of that. You don't want the animals to go foundering and stuff. So definitely consult your nutritionist about that. If you don't know enough about it, you don't want to do. It's kind of like every kid loves eating apples, but if you eat too many at one time, you're gonna get a stomach ache. Same with candy at Halloween. So that's something like that. Something else that came out of the blue last year. And we talked about it in our last video, but when we were selling our pumpkins, one thing that we were selling was also some cedar kindling wood. It's something there that I learned when I was up in Maine off grid, and every day when I start a fire, I would take some newspaper and put underneath. Set down 2 logs, put some newspaper, put 4 or 5 kindling pieces of up there in Maine. It's white cedar. We have red cedar where I live, but put the white cedar and then start putting more of your smaller sticks and wood on and start your fire. And it would just start like that. Well, so we're selling this kindling wood, and we got the kindling wood sitting there. We were selling 3 pounds at a batch. That's what it was, and 3-pound bunches to people. But we come to find out, what do people want? What do they keep asking us?
Can we use that for smoking?
Can we use it for smoking wood? And we realized after being asked this through the fall, and these are things, if you keep your ears open, you'll hear it. So it's off season right now. It's winter time. Things have slowed down to a dang near a standstill. So shoot, I got a chainsaw, I got a pickup truck, and I got a wood splitter. And I started looking at how the smoking wood is used. And I'm not a big pit master or anything like that, but I started YouTubing it, and I cooked my first brisket outside. That was my break-in. I think we got it at, what was the brisket price? What did you get that at?
I don't know, but the day I went in, they had it at 50% off, but you had to buy the full slab.
Well, it's a full slab.
Yeah. So.
But it was like 50 cents a pound.
No,
90.
No, it was 50% off. So the full slab cost me like $60.
So okay.
From 120.
So I decided I'd go ahead and I'd start cooking wood, and I started YouTubing. But because again, I'm not that type of person. I'm not. But Pip, my goodness, we're near Kansas City here. We got some of the finest barbecue places in the country. And I lived in North Carolina and Virginia, and they got wonderful barbecue too. But it's become a real thing, this pit master stuff, and people want certain types of wood. So on our farm, we got the hickory, we got cherry, we got post oak. Those are 3 things that the pit masters on YouTube and TV are talking about. There's other woods too, but this is what we have. So I went in, I cut up some of that, and I chunked it down into smaller portions. And I think that's an opportunity. It's another product to have on your table or on the ground next to your table to generate a little bit of extra income. I remember watching some person who was very successful in their life, and one of the lessons or one of the questions a reporter asked this individual how do you continue to stay interested in what you do? You're so successful at what you do, which isn't us yet, but how do you stay so interested in what you do, and how do you keep being so creative? And the person said the most important thing is to always keep one foot in the ditch. Always have that one foot. Keep yourself grounded. Don't think you know everything. Don't hold your head up too high. Don't continue to do the same thing over and over again. We grew Swiss char for 1 or 2 years, and the fact is I got tired, and Delia got tired.
We had 1 or 2 customers.
We had 1 or 2 customers that really liked it, and the only reason they really probably bought it is we were selling it for $2 for a bag full, because we had no other way. We were trying to get people to learn it, but we said, that's it. I'm not gonna. That becomes a lot of work. And same way for our area for kale. Kale is not. It's not in our people's diets out here. Sorry, it just ain't. It might be one of the most nutritious power foods out there for our area. it's not as important. You know, I can get rid of a little bit of kale, but I can probably sell more dill, dill itself, dill clusters than I can anything else. I can do the dill, the basil, and all of that. I can sell more of that than I can of the others. So you got to learn and listen and adapt. Adjust the amount that you grow. Adjust the timeliness that you grow. You know, invest where you can. I will say it was our very best year, wouldn't you, Delia? I mean, as much frustration as we had, it was a wonderful year. Looking back on it, we're not where we want to be, but we're on the way there. We at least starting to pull that horse out of the barn and getting the harness on it. So, Delia, you got anything you want to add about the 2024, 2025? What do you?
No, I just need to start. I'm waiting for some of the seeds haven't come in yet, because as soon as they get here, I need to start seeding them already.
Yep, it's about that time. Can you believe it? We need some of this really bad weather to kind of get beyond this, because today was 10 degrees, felt like negative 10. Negative 10, it felt like negative 18. That's how our day started today, and we had a 13 to 7, well, our big snow was 13 inches, but altogether we ended up with 16, 17 inches of snow. Things have melted since then and stuff, but we got to get beyond that, I think, before our shop and everything. You know, but she's right. It's getting awfully close to where we're going to be planting the seedlings here very soon, and so we just got to make sure we can take care of everything. One thing that we noticed last year, and we still got to deal with it, but the plants do better in the high tunnel than they do underneath the grow lights. There's got to be. I'll be honest with you. Maybe when you think grow lights, one of the besides lettuce, but I see the hemp production. You know, these guys growing hemp in their basements, and they got grow lights. And I understand NFL teams are growing their grass below the stadiums underneath grow lights. All these different things, but I don't like the way the plant looks. I think it gets leggy.
They do get leggier.
They get leggier. They look weaker. They look spindlier. And we put the grow lamp right on top of that plant. Right there. Drop it down right on top of it. And it still ends up not being what it was. They turn purple.
Yeah.
On the tomatoes, they definitely turn purple.
And I have two different types of grow lights. One of them, when you look at it, it has a reddish look to it. The other one has a bluish look to it. We tried a different one to see if it was the wrong spectrum of light. Even though,
and they even say they have this one light even says that it covers all spectrums. So you think you're doing it right. Now, don't get me wrong, the plant isn't dying.
No, it's surviving.
But it certainly is a weaker plant. Now you got to deal with that weaker plant out in the field later on. And so there's still a little, you know what? We got to grow longer legs so we can jump a few more hurdles yet. So, folks, thank you very much for joining Delia and Ed in Fresh Picked Acres. Hopefully this year I will be a little bit more vigilant on weekly videos. Again, that comes down to those weeds where I'm spending too much time having to go deal with the weeds out there. I know in the pumpkin area out there that I know for 6 straight weeks I was going back and pulling weeds, spraying weeds every morning. It was so frustrating. So hope you guys can. We'd love to hear what you have to say about this. Another site that we're going to probably start putting some of our videos on soon is probably going to be Rumble. I think we'll add Rumble to our videos as well, not just to YouTube alone, just to open up to a broader audience. Very happy to have you guys on that channel as well. But thank you all very much. What else can you say? Until we meet again, please hit that subscribe and that like button and come grow with us.